Hey everybody. We've been talking about ratios and proportions a lot in class lately, and today I wanted to talk about really the most common type of proportion problem that you're going to come across, which are percent problems. Remember that percent means divided by 100. So 27% is the same as 27 over 100. So we can always write 27% as a fraction. We can also write 27% as a decimal because 27 divided by 100 equals 0.27. By writing a percent as a fraction, we can use a proportion to solve a problem. So when we're solving percent problems using proportions, we can represent the statement A is P percent of B using this proportion. A over B equals P over 100. In a type of problem like this, A represents a part in the problem. So it can represent a part of your paycheck that's taken out for taxes. It can represent the part of a population that votes for a certain candidate. And the base in that problem, or the whole amount, is B. So that would be the entire population in the case of an election. Or in the case of taxes, it would be your whole paycheck that the taxes are being taken out of. And P over 100 represents the percent. So we can use these proportions to really find any one of those three numbers, A, B, or P. So in this example here, it says what percent of 25 is 17? So we're looking at the percent of 25. So 25 is the whole in this case, or the base, the whole amount. Because we want to know what percent of that is 17. 17 is the part, right? 17 out of 25 we can write as a fraction like that. And this equals the percent, which we don't know. We don't know the percent. So that's P over 100, not 160, 100. Now we can solve a percent or a proportion just like we always do by cross multiplying. So P times 25 is going to give us 25P equals 17 times 100. That's easy, just 17, and we add 2 zeros to that, 1,700. And now we can divide by 25 on both sides because this is just a one-step equation. Now, percent problems, we can have tricky numbers sometimes, so I'm not really going to expect you guys to do this without a calculator. And we just do 1,700 divided by 25, and we get P equals 68. So 68% is our final answer for this problem. Let's do a couple more examples of using a proportion to solve a percent problem real quick. Number one here is very similar to the last one we did. We don't know the percent, right? It doesn't tell us the percent, so we're looking for the P in our P over 100 fraction. Now we know that the base in this problem is 20 because we want to know what percent of that is 15, right? 15 out of 20 is what out of 100? 15 times 100 is 1500, always easy to multiply by 100, and then 20p, we divide by 20 because it's just a one-step equation now, and we get p equals, let's use our calculator, 1500 divided by 20 is 75. So 75%, 15 is 75% of 20. In number two, now we're actually looking for something different. What is 30% of 90? In this case, we actually know P. P is 30 out of 100. Okay? And it says what number is 30% of 90? 90 is the whole amount here because we want to know what number is 30% of that. And 30% of 90 is going to be smaller, so that's going to be A. Now we can do our cross multiplication. We got 100 times A equals 30 times 90. 3 times 9 is 27, and we have 2 zeros. And now we divide by 100 on both sides. Dividing by 100 is pretty easy too, because we just move the decimal over 2 places. 27. A equals 27. 27 is 30% of 90. There's also another way we can do percent problems, and it kind of depends on your preference for which method you like. You can use either one. We have this proportion a over b equals p over 100, right? We've seen that before. Now, I can also solve for a. I can get the part of the problem by itself, right? The smaller part, by multiplying by b on both sides, right? This inverse operation here, just like we solved if that was like a 5, a over 5, we would multiply by 5 on both sides. A over b, we multiply by b on both sides. We're left with a equals p over 100 times b. So if p is a percent, let's say p is 45, right? 45 over 100 equals 0.45. So what we can do is we can actually use this equation right here, but write it in a different form. We can say that a is p% of b, and we can use this equation, a equals p times b, but in this case, p has to be written as the decimal version of that fraction. Okay? Instead of writing 45, we'll write 0.45. Or if it's 2%, we're not going to write 2 for p, we're going to write 0.02. So here, in our first example, we're going to use that a equals p times b. And we're just going to plug in our values. Now, I know that the part in this problem, the smaller amount, is 51. 51 is what percent of 136, right? So we could rewrite this as 51 equals 136p. And we just divide both sides by 136. Now I'm going to get p equals, and using my calculator again, 51 divided by 136 is 0.375. So we have our percent now written as a decimal. But if I want to write it as a percent, because that's what it's asking for in the problem, I'm just going to move my decimal over 2 spaces to the right, and my percent is 37.5%. Examples 3 and 4 here are pretty similar to that last problem, right? We're still going to use a equals p times b. So my part here is 49, and my whole is 56, because I'm looking for a percent of 56. So if I rewrite my equation, I have 49 equals 56, that's b times p. We don't know what the percent is. So I can divide both sides by 56. And in this case, I'm going to get p equals 0.875. Now, to write that as a percent, we move it over 2 spaces, and I get 87.5%. You could also solve this problem using the proportions that we looked at earlier. So there's 2 methods, and it's really about which one works best for you. Same thing over here. Once again, we're looking for the percent. We know the part of the problem is 11. 11 is what percent of 55? So 55 times the percent. We're going to divide both sides by 55. And p is going to equal 0.2. Now this is a tricky one. A lot of people write 2% as the answer here, but we got to make sure we move it over 2 spaces, that decimal, and in that empty space a 0 goes, so we get 20% is our answer there. In examples 5 and 6, we're actually looking for something else. What number is 45% of 92? A equals 0.45 times 92. We know the percent here. The percent is 45, but remember we have to write that as a decimal. So we move that decimal 2 places to the left now to make it a decimal. Now, in this case, I have a all by itself over on the left side. I don't need to do anything over there. I just need to simplify 0.45 times 92, which gives me 41.4. 41.4 is the answer to this problem. That is the part of the whole of 92. In number 6, similar problem here. What number is 140% of 50? So we're looking for the part again. A equals, now in this case, if we move the decimal 2 places to the left, I'm going to have 1.40 or 1.4 times 50. So if I do 1.4 times 50, I get 70. In this case, the part is actually bigger than the whole, but that makes sense because we're looking for something that's 140%. It's over 100% of the whole amount. All right, our last example here, when we're trying to find a base, that's usually a more difficult problem to set up. What's actually the whole number, the whole amount that we're looking for? But if we're using our percent equation, A equals PB, we can do this. A, in this case, the part is 20. We know that. We're starting with the part. We know the percent is 12.5 or 0.125 once we convert it to a decimal, times B. So now we just have to divide by 0.125, divide by 0.125, and we get B equals 160. So the whole amount here is 160. 20 out of 160 is 12.5%. Okay? You could also do that using a proportion. 20 over B equals 12.5 over 100, right? And you can cross multiply and solve it, and you'll get the exact same answer. So to sum things up, there's 3 different ways that we can use the percent equation or proportion to solve a percent problem. We can look for the percent. We can look for a part of the base, right? That's A. Or we can find the base, the whole number in the problem, and that's B. So here's some examples of the types of problems that we're going to see, and then the types of equations that we're going to use to solve those problems. Might be a good idea to get those down in your notes. All right? So go ahead, finish up your notes. Don't forget to submit them, and I will see you guys tomorrow.